A couple of things to talk about, and just what I thought I'd do is I'd kind of set up the stage a little bit here so you know what I'm prattling about. Thank God it's Monday, because the basic premise of my talk is that I believe the established church has failed. I think it's failed our society and it's failed our communities. 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sundays isn't good enough. I've got you listening now? Good. So my answer to that is get on your knees, get down from your pulpit, establish a relationship and get on with your Christianity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about three things. Basically the first one thing is, what's life for? Then I'm going to kind of wander over here and I'm going to say, have you met an angel lately? Then I'm kind of going to wander over here, I'm going to tell you a few stories about, so what does oblivion look like? What does oblivion look like? So I wander back over here. I attended the Church of the Great Outdoors for many years. What that means is I kind of did a job that kind of didn't let me go to church. So I believe that church is moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day, not between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock on a Sunday. So what's this life for? One of the questions that I often ask people is, what is your purpose? We all kind of know that because we're wearing Salvation Army uniforms or we're officers and things like that. Actually, no. That's kind of what you do. What is your purpose? What are your dreams? Without a vision, the people perish. I worked on Rotorua Island, which is a drug and alcohol rehab kind of centre for a wee while there, and we did a whole bunch of investigation counselling things, and a few bizarre things happened. Some people got well. Rotorua Island was the bottom of the bottom for people who kind of met the end of the road. Yet we got people well, and what was it that made the difference? We gave them hope. We gave them hope. I take my kids on an adventure weekend away with Dad every year. And so my 13-year-old was sitting in the car. We're heading up to Mount Ruapehu to do some mountaineering. Ben was sitting beside me and he said, "Dad, what's the point?" Occasionally dads kind of get asked that question. "Dad, what's the point? We live, we're born, we live a bit and then we die. What's the point?" Occasionally in our lives, we're put in a place that we have to answer that question for someone who's seeking the truth. Billy Graham's daughter, and I've got a 9-year-old daughter, and I was reading a book on how to be a better dad with daughters, which is kind of important for us dads. And this is what Billy Graham's daughter said: "I know Dad was out saving the world and that was important. I just wish that he'd been around a bit more." Ooh, I think he got some things very right, but he got some things very wrong. So thank God it's Monday, because we can get out of church and actually start living our lives through our purpose. If you don't know what it is, best you figure that out. So have you met an angel lately? Put up your hand if you have just lately. Good, because they're out there. I've met a few in my journey through life. I thought I'd better wear my fancy suit today because you're all very important people and I needed to do that. My wife and I went for a trip to Vietnam and Cambodia for a couple of reasons. We wanted to show our kids what kind of a developing nation was like, get out of white middle class New Zealand. Plus we got a whole bunch of development stuff that we're supporting over there. And we're walking through a little town called Hoi An, which is just south of Da Nang, which is just south of the demilitarized zone in the Vietnam, or the American War as they call it over there. And there was a young woman that we met, and she said, "Come and buy a suit, mister. You want a suit, mister?" And I'm going, "Oh, yes, no." She said, "Oh, come and see what we do." What they do is they gather up a whole lot of the child prostitutes and they teach them how to sew and do suit making things. So I walk in there and say, "Yeah, I want a suit, definitely." No haggling that day, I must tell you. What happens is they've got them off the street, they've got them in employment, and then so they produce lovely suits. So a $2,000 suit equivalent in New Zealand. My tie cost $300 equivalent in New Zealand. That was made through a whole bunch of people in Cambodia who, what they do is they gather them up because there's so many unexploded mines throughout Cambodia that people get arms and legs blown off. It's just horrendous. They gather them up, they help them set up their own businesses and stuff. And there was a silk farm and they made this tie. No haggling that day either. How did I know? Because there was someone who started those agencies. There was someone who gathered them up. Someone was an angel at that moment, at that time. I work with Aro Health Centre in the centre of Wellington. We've got an angel and her name is Jane. What she does is we deal with the bottom end of people there. They don't come to our clinic. They don't come to our clinic. We have to go to them. So Jane's out there doing her doctor and nurse things on the street with the street people who live there. She's an angel. Pretty hard angel. She's right in my face most of the time. I'm only the chairperson. She's actually running the show. I can remember facilitating a group session, and there was a 6'4" transsexual, the first successful transsexual operation in New Zealand, and there's me and this lovely woman who are co-facilitating a community engagement and conversation about what does the community need. If you ever want to know what the transsexual community needs, co-facilitate a group where you're actually asking that question. Was she an angel? Completely. So thank God it's Monday, because we get out of church and we start living our lives so that we find those angels in our world. There's a few of them out there. Let's wander across here. What's oblivion like? We're all going to have to face up to the day. That young surfer faces up to it quite a few times, and that's the biggest wave ever surfed, ever, that's been filmed. And you've seen it, so there you go. Oblivion is one small mistake away for that young man. So oblivion, part of what I do in my day job is we run New Zealand Snow and Avalanche Management System for New Zealand. And occasionally last year there were 3 fatalities. One of those near fatalities, there's a fatality, and one person actually lived in what happened. And what happened is, as the avalanche come down, this person got buried and they get swept down the hill, 300-metre slide. Not very good, not very pleasant. It goes very bad for anyone who's in that situation. Person was buried, and he described what it was like in the coronial inquiry. And we were talking to him after, and he said, what happens is it was so black, I didn't know which was up and down. He said, every time I breathed out and I breathed in, the ice shrunk a little bit closer. And I breathed out and I breathed in, and the ice shrunk a little bit closer. It sets like concrete. Breathe out, breathe in. He got to the point where he couldn't breathe anymore. And he remembers that moment of truth on the edge of oblivion. There's a few people who face that, not necessarily in avalanches, but every moment of every day. There's a couple of my team, one has got a 12-year-old daughter who has cancer. 12-year-old daughter. Now, 95% of children who have this particular form of cancer live. 95% of adults who have that particular cancer die. She's right in the middle between 95 that way, 95 that way. What's oblivion like for that mum and dad? Remember when Leonie and I were in Cambodia, I wanted to go and see the killing fields. You know about the Khmer Rouge regime that happened 75 to 79. It's a paddock about this size, and it's got these big holes in the ground. It looks like a digger's been gone crazy. And each little hole in the ground has got a little note there. Here was buried 300 people. Here was buried 200 children. Here was buried 400 whatever. But there's a tree, and there's a sign on the tree that says, this is where they bashed the babies to death, just before they put them in the hole. And there was over on this other side, so here's this tree, and my spirit is just crying. So what's oblivion like? Remember we're talking about that. Over here there was a little fenced off area. I thought I'll go and have a look what that is, and I kind of need a breather from the tree and the holes in the ground. And it kind of fenced off, said, we just haven't quite processed this part of the killing fields yet. And I thought there was something under my feet. So I got down on my hands and knees, and just as I'm down like this, and I'm just brushing the dirt off. And I realised that underneath my feet were the bones of the people that they hadn't exhumed from the ground. And I'm standing on this sacred ground. What's oblivion like? Can you imagine what it would have been like the moment these people were seeing their children bashed to death on a tree? They used to, because they had no money for bullets, they put a plastic bag around their head and suffocated them to death. Thank God it's Monday, because we can get out of our churches and we can actually go and make a difference in the world. I was talking to a very good friend of mine, Kenneth Walker from Queenstown. He said, but Darryl, part of what I do is thank God it's Sunday, because I can go and get recharged and rebuilt so that on Monday I can go out and change the world. So part of what I encourage you today in my little soapbox talk, and I haven't got very long to go, is stop preaching your Google-orientated messages. Speak from your heart. Get down off the pulpit and go and meet people. Build a relationship. Support those angels who are out there. We were talking about them. If you don't know what your purpose is, best you figure that out. Find yourself some angels and back them, And one day when you're facing that moment of truth over here in oblivion, you will be able to answer what you have to be accountable for. So thank God it's Monday, because the established church in 1975 has failed. Today is a new way of doing things. Good luck.